Welcome to another installment of What Did I Get Myself Into? Today's lesson, we'll be texturing the coffee mug and the cereal box. Now there's two different ways that we're going to be texturing these kinds of things. Obviously we need them unlocked in order for all this stuff to happen, so I've gone through my layers and unlock them. I don't need to see the other stuff in my scene, and it may just cause some confusion later. So if I just turn the visibility off on stuff that I don't need, then I can really focus on the things that I'm going to worry about. So let's do the coffee mug first. Okay, so we want to basically put an image on here. This is like a popular thing that you'll see in lots of different coffee mugs. If I switch over to my images, here is a bunch of different coffee mugs and lots of different coffee pictures on the sides of them. Republican Party, Democratic Party, Pizza Party. Lots of cool stuff. That's cool too. Okay, so our first step is Photoshop. You're going to make a picture. Okay, so you go to File, New. We switch this to pixels. We don't care about inches. We don't care about resolution. We need this to be 2048 by 2048. We don't have a lot of textures in our scene, so we can get by with a bit of a bigger texture. Okay, so we're going to have basically 2048 pixels left, 2048 pixels tall. RGB, white, okie dokie. So you're going to make your texture here. So whatever you want it to look like, that's what you'll put in here. Now you have basically an underlying color. So if I switch this, and then I switch it to, let's say, blue, and I fill that with blue. Okay, if you don't remember your hotkeys, there's hotkey sheets in the classroom. And you can also go to Edit Fill, fill stuff in. You can also find the paint bucket somewhere over here. I don't even know where the paint bucket is. I don't use it that often. There it is, paint bucket. You could use that. Okay, so if you pick blue, that's going to be like the color of your mug is this blue color. So I'm going to try to find something that's a little more neutral. And then you're going to go in here and just put literally whatever you want. You don't want to fill up the entire thing with your picture. You want to leave a little bit of room, so kind of go with like this little margin, like in the center here, to put your image. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, exact. It just, you know, typically you want to leave some room on the edges for other stuff. So let's say that I had my text tool here, and I did pizza. Change the font so you can read it. There we go. Pizza, pizza, pizza. Wonderful. And let me get this a nicer font, you know. Ooh, that's cool. That's pizzazz. Pizza pizzazz. Alright, so here's my image. I'm just going to save it into my textures folder. I'm going to call it Coffee Mug Texture 02 because I already have my other one that I'm going to use. So I'm going to hit this as a targa, save it, okie do it, back to Cinema, and I need to assign it. So I go to my coffee mug texture, there it is, and I'm going to go to my texture here, and I'm going to load in my coffee mug texture 02, and you'll see that it's going to come in wrong. Like if I zoom in, you can see we get this madness happening. So what we need to do, and I actually laid out correctly because I've already done this part. I've already done part of it anyway. But I need to fix it so that it doesn't look so crazy. Now, typically what's going to happen is on your coffee mug, it might come in like that, it might come in like this, whatever. Now you can go through and try to find one that's gonna, you know, work best out of all of these, but most of the time it's not going to be happy. Okay, these are basically for just like we've already kind of seen where it's just like we don't really care about getting it exactly in a specific spot. Maybe we can get it here, and then maybe we could, you know, offset it or change the length or whatever. But realistically, these are just kind of like, hope these work. If they don't work, then we have to do something else. And in this case, we got to do something else. Look at that. So under projection, I'm going to leave this on UVW mapping. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to edit exactly where this pizza exists. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have my mug selected. So I go into here. You don't want to click the coffee mug. You want to click the cylinder. That's where your texture actually is on. Okay, it's not on this because this is a smooth version. It's on this. All right. So I'm going to go up here to layout and change this to BP UV edit. All right. Now inside here, this is going to allow us to edit exactly where this texture is. You'll see you have your object list down here. There's materials. We have some attributes here. We have some mapping techniques here. And then we have this, which is where we'll be able to see what this looks like flat. Okay. All of this stuff on the left is for painting. We're not going to be doing that in here. All the top stuff up here is for adjusting the placement of the UVs. Okay. So I'm going to switch over to my UV polygons. And you can see how I have this grid that's highlighted right here. And it's also highlighted right here. So these faces that are highlighted in this area are highlighted in this area. And if I'm in the move tool, say move tool, I can move this around and change the position of where it's picking that stuff up. Okay. So now when you get yours, it's not going to be as nice because the default settings are not like this. So your defaults, if I switch to my selection tool and grab everything, and I just do like that, are basically, you know, some sort of messed up version of this kind of thing. Okay, so it may even come in, you know, like that, messed up. All right, so what I need to do is I need to adjust it. I need to control where the picture is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my UV polygons here. And I'm going to marquee the area that I don't want that to be. Okay, so I don't want that picture anywhere here. Okay, maybe I want it here, so I'll hold control and deselect this. You may have to come down here to your options and make sure that tolerant is on and only visible is off if you don't already have that. That's going to be something that is, you know, always kind of there inside of Cinema. I think I want that. There we go. All right, see the bottom got selected here, but not all the bottom, so I want to make sure I grab all that. Okay. That should be good. So I'm going to put my pizza right there. Maybe I'll leave a little bit of room on top, so I'll grab those. Okay, so now I have this nice area of where I want that pizza to be. Now the reason that I grabbed all the stuff where I don't want the pizza is you'll see that the label, the texture, is actually spreading out into these. So I basically need to just like get rid of that so it doesn't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my UV mapping, change this over to projection, and I'm going to say that I want this just to be flat. Okay, so you'll see that I have this flat image now of my coffee mug. Basically what it's done is projected the image straight at it at an angle. So if I were to actually spin around, there it is. You can see the pizza is right there. Now I don't care about this stuff. And there's an A right there. What I want to do with this is I want to scale it down. So I'm going to switch to my scale tool. And I'm just going to scale this down into a super tiny image. And I'm going to go to my move tool and just move it off to the corner. Because I know that in my image here, over here is just flat color. So that's why I drag those pixels over to here. All right. So basically it's saying that all these areas that we just selected, that's the texture I want you to grab is from this corner. Okay. Now this area here, I'm going to switch back to my selection tool. I'm going to marquee this. That should be all the area that I want my pizza to be on. Okay. Now you'll also see that there's inside it's selecting stuff too. So if I were to turn my coffee off, there we go. You can see that that's selecting too. Now it shouldn't matter because we're not going to see it, okay, because it's on the inside of our cup. So we could take it off there and whatever, but it's not going to be an issue, so why bother? All right, so now I have the faces for the outside of where I want this to be. So I'm going to go back to my projection, and I'm going to do, I'll try cylindrical first, okay? And you'll see that cylindrical is actually like breaking it up. if I go to my move tool and I move this, okay, kind of works, right? That could work. So here's the outside. These pieces, let me grab this. This is part of the inside stuff. Okay, part of those inside pieces. And then all of this is part of those inside pieces as well. All right, so we can go through and we can, you know, move and scale and adjust this. Maybe I want to try a different method though, because I am getting a little bit of streaking on this. Oops. You can see as I bring it here, I'm getting this kind of like stretching out. So I can try other methods. Really easy. Just click flat, and now this flattens it out. So there's my image. I can move it still, right? I can go through and scale it. Okay, you'll see that I don't get nearly as much stretching as I was getting a second ago, which is important when you put a texture on there, because you want to be the best representation of your object based on what you've drawn inside of Photoshop. Okay, so there's pizza, pizza, pizza. I'm going to just click off, and you can see that that's done. Now, if we decided we don't want pizza, pizza, pizza on there, because that's kind of silly, here's my other image that I created. There's me. It's kind of like The Office. And you can see there's lots of extra space outside of it, because I wanted this to be kind of, you know, have a big margin to play with. So if I go back to my materials, and I go to my coffee mug, and you can double click it to bring it up. Sometimes this window is a little bit limiting. Click on this, click on the dots, change this to coffee mug texture. There it is. Close that. You'll see that it places it in the same area, right? So if I drew this image in the center and I drew this image in the center, it's going to place both of those in the same spot. But I can always come back and move it too. If I don't like the placement of it, I can grab these points, switch to my move tool, and then adjust where this is at. Go to my scale tool and adjust the size of it. Now it is a bit opposite to what you would think. Like in here, I want this image to be bigger. You would think you would come over here and make this bigger. No, you make this smaller, and that stretches it out because it's grabbing a different portion of that image. Whoa. Okay, so obviously I want those star tips to fit in there. I go to my move tool, shove it over a bit. Maybe a bit more. There we go. Cool. Now, if you needed to redo something, it's no big deal, because you can just grab stuff and reproject it, and it just overwrites that. You don't have to delete anything or undo or whatever. If I didn't like how this was projected, I can just click on one of these, grab the faces I want, click on one of these, and it'll reproject it the way that I want it to project. Okay? So, the coffee mug is done. Let's switch this back to standard. And I'm just going to deselect. There we go. And I'm going to spin around just to make sure that there's no lingering things in there. Now, I could still come over to my coffee mug. I could still come over to my mix mode here. And right now it's set to normal, meaning that if I were to pick a different color, it doesn't do anything. But if I switch this mix mode to add, let's say, you'll see that it actually like tints it some. So if I needed to tint the entire thing, I could tint the entire thing. Okay. Or if I needed to change a color, let me just set this back to normal. I could just jump into Photoshop, go to my background, just to make it obvious. There we go. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Let's take this down to 0. 0 is no good. I guess we'll just go with the darker blue. There we go. It's not too bad. Then I'm going to save this as a targa, as coffee mug texture. Yes, I want to replace it. Okie dokie. Come back into Cinema. Click here. Reload. And there's my new image. And you'll see everything updates and it looks wonderful. Okay, cool. So now coffee mug is done. So I'm going to go to my layers. I'm going to lock my coffee mug. And I'm going to hide my coffee mug. I don't know why it does that sometimes. Sometimes it just seems like it loses the connection. I have it selected? No. Yeah, see, coffee is gone. Coffee and coffee mug are not. I'll just add those back in there. There we go. All right. So now that one is gone. So now let's work on our cereal box. Now this one's going to be the opposite. So in the coffee mug, we built the coffee mug texture, and then we brought it in and laid it out. This one's a bit more complex because I have a picture I want here, a picture I want on the side here, a picture I want back here, and a picture I want here. Okay, and of course the top too. Okay, if we shoot this thing from, let's say, an angle like this, we want to see all three sides and what it looks like. Same thing here, right? The bottom's not so important, but we do want to make sure that we have those things available. All right, especially because, spoiler alert, your final is going to be very similar to this assignment where we have to create objects and lay out textures correctly and all that. All right, so what we're going to do is we have our cereal box, and I'm going to put a material on here. So I'm going to double click down here, double click this, just so we can see it better. I'm going to drop on a checkerboard. No. There it is, surfaces, checkerboard. There we go. So we have this checkerboard on here, just so we can see, you know, something. Colors really don't matter here because there's obviously not affecting it, but it's all under the checkerboard. We can change colors, we don't need to. I'm going to change my frequency to like 10 and 10. Okay, so I basically want to see a checkerboard pattern because how this gets placed is very important. Okay, then I'm going to drop this onto my box. And what we can see here is that checkerboard pattern. When I drop it on the box, this area becomes really stretched out. These are kind of stretched out. The front is kind of stretched out. The top is stretched out, okay? Even though we have a square pattern, it's coming in off, okay? And it's not consistent from side to side. If I go to the UV, or the texture area here, and I switch this from UV mapping to, let's say, spherical, you'll see what happens there. If I change it to flat, you can see here, we actually get what we want. We get squares, okay? Our texture square, these should be square. But I'm going to come to the side, this is all streaked out. If we switch this to cubic, we actually get a nice texture on every direction. Now, this doesn't help us out though, because what it's doing is projecting the same texture in the front, the side, and the top, and we really don't get the ability to tweak where it is, okay? Very much like we had on the coffee mug, we may want to adjust where that's going to be located. So again, we're going to switch this back to UVW, and again, we're going to go up to layout and change this to BP UV edit, and I'm going to select my box. There we go. Make sure I'm in the polygon, UV polygon mode, and this is what it's showing me so far is like that's the polygons, okay? That's everything. I marquee it, and you can see everything right there. Because what it's doing is it takes each one of these faces and it stretches it out as big as it fits inside of this square. So that's why everything looks the way it looks, because of that. Okay. So I'm going to switch over to our projection. I'm going to go to, just so you can see the other ones, here's sphere, obviously not right, cylinder, frontal. And frontal is like where your camera is. So like right now my camera is right here. If I spin my camera around and hit frontal again, okay, so it's kind of a neat way to be able to do it, because if I only cared about one side, I could go like this and say frontal, and it would give me that one side perfect. The rest of it's going to look like junk, okay. Flat is just right head on, like right directly in front of it. Cubic is going to be, here's the original one that was cubic. Here's cubic 2, which gives you basically a broken down box. And the one I found works best for this is box. Okay, so you can see this is what it looks like. If you had a cereal box at home and you cut open the folds, you would get this, right? That's what you would see. So what's cool about this is if I were to create a texture and I put one image here and one image here, when I placed it, it would actually put one image on the front of the box and one image on the back of the box, which pretty awesome. And then this is most likely the top flap. This is most likely the bottom flap. This is one side. This is the other side. So you can see how neat this is and how it's laid out, where we can very quickly just create one big texture that has all of these different pieces to it. Okay. Now, this layout here is perfect for what we need. But I need to get this into Photoshop so I know exactly where the front of the box stops. Okay, where the side stops, where the back stops, where the top and the bottom and the other side stop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my layers here, and you'll see on the layers we can actually create layers inside of this once we have a texture. Right now this doesn't have a texture assigned to it that we can edit. It has a texture but not one we can edit. So I'm going to go under Tools, Paint Setup Wizard. Okay, so with this selected, I go to the Paint Setup Wizard, and I'm going to make sure that I'm chosen on Materials and deselect all. And then this one, which is my checkerboard, I'm going to say yes, let's do that. And what it's going to do is make a paintable texture for this one. I hit Next. It's going to say, do you want to recalculate the UVs? I'm going to say no, don't do that, because I've already done that. These are good. I don't want you to touch them. Single material, yes, that's good. I'm going to create a material. I want just color, and you can give it just a white color to start. Rescale existing textures. We don't need, yeah, we can leave that on. We don't want this on either, okay? And we want this to be 4096 by 4096. All right, so this is a lot of details going to be inside of this box. If this is too small, we can't read it. Just to kind of preview this to you. Oops. If I hit the right buttons, let's say I had a 128 pixel by 128 pixel image, and I started typing on here, and I used a text size that you could actually see. There we go. You can see how grainy the word hello is, and as I shrink this down into another size, it really isn't readable. Okay. If I made a 4096 pixel image, and I type the word hello, you can see how nice and crisp and smooth this is. Even when I'm zoomed in, I can still see that it has nice smoothness to it. Okay, so that's where we're getting this number from, is we want any text and pictures we put on here to be nice and smooth. We could go higher, but it's kind of overkill for what we need. So I'm going to hit Finish. You'll see that our checkerboard goes away, which is fine. I'm going to hit Close. And we get this layer down here, which is just this white, basically like a base layer like you would have in Photoshop. So I'm going to make a new layer under Functions, New Layer. And what I want to do is I want to select my edges here, and I want to outline them. So I'm going to go to my selection. I'm going to grab everything and make sure obviously you're on the UV polygons, and under layer I'm going to say outline polygons. Now if I don't have my settings set up correctly, okay, here's a brush, here are the brush settings down here. If I have this brush setting up really high, it's going to make a big chunky line like this, and it's going to be soft. Okay, so I probably want to take the hardness up, and I probably want to bring this down to maybe like 5. Okay, that should give me a good number. So I click on my brush, I change my brush settings to a 5 radius and or size, and then a hardness all the way up. I switch back to this thing, I switch back to layer, and I go to outline, and you'll see that it outlines all of my stuff. Now I'm going to go to File, I'm going to say, oops, not File, this file, and I'm going to say Save Texture. I want to save it as a targa. I'm going to hit Okie dokie, and I'm going to say serial box underscore UV. Okay, and I put it in my textures folder so I know where it is. Cool. So now that it's done saving, I go into here and I find my serial box UV, and you'll see that I get an image that has all the UVs laid out for it. Pretty awesome. Okay. So now it's just a matter of making new layers and building what we want this to look like. So use reference for this. Don't try to just guess what it looks like. look at different cereal boxes and see what other ones have on there. You don't have to go crazy with what you're doing in there. You know, something like the Cheerios one is pretty nice because it's pretty simple. The biggest thing is making it look like there's enough detail on here to actually be a cereal box. If I just made a red, say I make a new layer, and I'm going to color it red. Boom. Now you'll see that I lose my UVs. That's no big deal because I'm just going to drag my background above this. I have to double click first and then drag my background above it. And then just change this mode on the background to multiply. Okay, so I'm not going to touch this. I'll just lock it. Okay. And then I can just make my stuff. So what you don't want to do, like I said, is make your background, let's say red, and then drop in some text that says Fruit Loops. I have a lowercase s I have to fix. Okay, that doesn't look like a cereal box, right? It looks horrible. Okay, so you want to use techniques that you would typically see in these things. That's why I said the Cheerios one is nice because it is a rather simple design. Even this one's like way too plain for me. Okay, so you'll see this one's General Mills, so you can make up a cereal name, it doesn't matter. So I'm not going to show you step by step creating the cereal box thing, but eventually you would have something in there. Now you could use Illustrator too, you just have to make sure you bring it back into here and lay it out. So I have this one that I just, I downloaded this just so you could see an example of how they would be laid out. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm copying that and then pasting it. You're not going to be copying and pasting, you're going to be laying yours out. I'll have a separate video where I go through and lay it out one at a time, okay, where I actually build it, but there won't be audio to it, it'll just be me working, okay. For this class, you should have at least an understanding of basic Photoshop. And this is why this one's no good, because the front and the back are the same. That doesn't make sense. And you really want to avoid the edges, having the same or different color on the edges that'll make it look like it's not lining up correctly. Okay, so look at all the text that's on each of these. And I'm stretching these just to fit it in there because I'm not going to use this as my actual cereal box. I'm just using this as placeholder for the demo. Okay, you definitely don't want to stretch these out. And I need something for the top, so I'm just going to grab this. I'll put that there. Come on. I want you, and copy this one. Alright, and then just so I have a color here, obviously I need this to be like white. Alright, good enough for our little demo. Alright, so I'm going to turn off my UVs. There we go. And I'm just going to save this as cereal box don't use. That way I know not to use that one, obviously. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to hit OK. Come back into Cinema. We're done pretty much with this, so I can just switch this back to my standard. And on my material for this, you'll see that it created or it attached this file. Okay, so it got rid of the checkerboard and attached that file. So now I just have to use this one. And you'll see how it comes in exactly as I laid it out inside of Photoshop. Now, let's say it came in backwards. No big deal. You grab it and you spin it around 180 degrees. Just rotate it so that the back is in the front and the front is in the back or whatever. Cool. All right. So that's how you would lay out the UVs and then create the texture for your cereal box. Okay, obviously, like I said, you are not going to copy and paste. You're not going to use other images. You're going to make your own image on here. So you designers in the class can really use some of your design skills to lay out a cereal box. Okay, and let's go back to our layers. Yep. Okay, so now we are hither. Okay, so we have our mug labeled, we have our fashion flakes, which I'll obviously rename and make an actual label for it, and then we have my cereal bowl with milk and whatever else. So at this point, I'm going to go to my render settings, and I'm going to set this to a really, really large number. Okay, now I believe there's the preset button. If we're printing this, and we wanted this to be like in a magazine ad or something, we may print this as like an 8x10 type thing. So I'm switching this to 8x10 preset, and that changes this to 8 inches by 10 inches, changes the resolution to 300, because this is something we would actually want to print. So we're not doing a video for this one, we're doing a still image. Now if you look at the sides of my screen here, you can see this area where this color is changing. That's where I need my stuff to fit, okay? So I'm going to frame this so that it all fits. So I may need to grab my coffee, go to my move tool, try to figure out why my move tool isn't showing. Oh, not in object mode. There we go. Move tool. Go to my attributes. I have something clicked. I don't know what I have clicked. Something's not working and I can't see my manipulator. Mommy, help me. Alright, well, if anything, I'll switch to my top view. Always find a workaround. And I can move it in my top view without screwing it up. And I can actually split this. Oops. Shrink this down. So I can use this as my front view of like what I want it to render like. And then this I can just use for placement. So I can put that here, switch to my rotate. Oops. I think my video drivers are going downstream. Down the toilet. Coffee mug, coordinates, there we go. Nope. There we go. Rotate it this way. Cool. And then I'll grab my cereal box. Move that here. And it definitely doesn't make sense too, because my cereal box is Fashion Flakes, and then I have like Fruit Loops in there, so that doesn't make sense. Oops, that's the wrong way. That's the wrong way. There we go. I may need to scale some of the stuff up. Like my bowl is huge, my cereal box is tiny. So I'm going to make this bigger. Now, adjusting the scale of this does not affect any negative things. Okay, so as I scale this up, the UVs and everything just scale with it. Oops. I need to switch back to my front view. So I can go to my move tool and move this up. Okay, very important to make sure everything's like actually sitting on the ground. Sometimes you'll work and work and work and you render it out, then whoops. All right, so that looks like a good size for that. My coffee mug could be a bit bigger also. Oops, my coffee itself. So I'll go to scale, scale it up. And I can do a lot of the stuff here too, like over in this view. Like I can just move my Y this way. I'm used to other hotkeys. Okay, and then it's just a matter of placing the juice, like where I want this to be. Now I'm not moving the cereal because with that dynamic stuff, sometimes it can just be a bit tricky to do. You can do it, it's just sometimes it doesn't want to play nice. Okay, So I'm basically just going through trying to find a good layout for where I want these items to be, and then a good placement for them inside of this view. Okay, so we want to show the serial because we spent time doing that. There we go. So I'm going to spend a little more time doing that, getting this laid out. You can hit obviously Control R and do little test renders. Okay, if the backdrop, well, number one, you can see that this isn't rendering correctly. It's like landscape, it should be portrait. That's fine because we'll adjust that when we go into our next area. But just previewing things and seeing where items are laid out, maybe adjusting some of the color on the orange juice or the cup or this, and trying to get everything to tie in nicely together. The next step that we do, the next video, will be the lighting and the rendering out, and then the final touches. Okay. Make sure you're staying organized. Make sure you're going through and renaming your stuff. So if you have a cereal box material, you've labeled it. I think all my other ones are labeled. Yep. Okay. And if you needed to like stretch this out or whatever, you can do that too. There's my backdrop. Here's my scale. I just make that bigger, so it covers up the area. All right. So I'm going to save, and then we'll see you on the next flip.